Okay, hello everyone. And thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for the second session of the Chicago Region Clean Energy Series hosted by BP, Nicor, and World Business Chicago. My name is Nicole McCarthy. I'm the Innovation Program Manager here at World Business Chicago, and we're thrilled to have you here this afternoon. Before I welcome our first speaker, please note that you may ask questions of our panelists using the Q&A feature, as we have disabled the chat function during today's session. We highly encourage any and all questions that you may have. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Natalie Figueroa, BP's Vice President of Refining and Products Trading Americas, to kick off today's session. Welcome, Natalie.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Apologies, I had some technical difficulties.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Good. Apologies there. A lot of technical difficulties this morning, this afternoon. So thank you for having me. Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Figueroa, and it's my honor to welcome you to session 2 of World Business Chicago's Clean Energy Series. Conversations like these are critical as we bring forth innovation and technology that can create and enable rapid transformation in the way we use energy. It's going to take all of us working together to accelerate meaningful action and get the world to net zero carbon emissions. I know we're all looking forward to a robust conversation around the role of biofuels in reducing emissions, reducing carbon intensity, and offering states like Illinois another tool in decarbonizing energy. I'm particularly excited about this session and the panelists who have joined us today, as low carbon has been an absolute passion of mine, as prior to my current role as VP of leading the trading team here in Chicago, I was part of leading and enabling the low carbon team. So as a global energy business, BP is focused on becoming a net zero company by 2050 or sooner, and to help the world get to net zero. And part of that ambition includes supporting a range of technologies that will help us transition to a low carbon future. In fact, I don't know if most people know, but the largest supplier of renewable natural gas is BP, or as we so-called call it, biogas, to the US transportation sector. My team also enables projects that reduce or store greenhouse gases and generate environmental credits for use in carbon markets. It's incredibly exciting to work on projects here in Illinois that will have an impact across the globe. So finally, I want to thank World Business Chicago for convening the series, and I'm pleased to turn the program over to Ellie Barnacel of Further Faster Design, who will be guiding our panel of experts in a discussion on the role of biofuels in advancing carbon reductions. So over to you, Ellie.
Thank you, Nati. It's an honor to be here with this great group of humans today. As Nati shared, my name is Ellie Barnacel, and I'm the CEO of Further Faster Design. We're a venture studio based in Chicago, working with early stage ventures to solve some of the most pressing challenges in the world. Speaking of solving most pressing challenges in the world, we've got an incredible lineup of leaders today who are here to share their insights on the challenges that we're facing in this space. I could try and do each of these incredible humans justice, but I think it would be much more compelling to hear from each of them. So panelists, if you'd be kind enough, we'd love it if you could introduce yourself and your organization. And since we're in this Zoom first world and we don't have the benefit of getting to know each other socially with our guests today, thought we could also get a little bit personal. If you could tell us what the last compelling piece of content is that you consumed. It could be a podcast, a book, an article, but something that's really sparking your learning and or curiosity, your enjoyment, to maybe plant some seeds with our guests today. I will pass it to Andrew first, if you wouldn't mind getting us started.
Great, thank you, Ellie. Can you all see and hear me okay? Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Andrew Chang. I'm a managing director here at United Airlines Ventures. I joined United last summer after about 2 years of being an investment banker, advising companies around strategy, capital raise, M&A, both in the airline world and traditional oil and gas. I think as we've all seen with the energy transition and drive towards sustainability, particularly over the last 2 or 3 years, I felt compelled to move over to the corporate side, be closer to the decision making, and the opportunity at United was sort of a unicorn finding for me, and enabling me to combine all those different disciplines around transportation and traditional oil and gas, and moving to alternative fuels. So United Airlines Ventures was established in June of last year, around when I arrived. As we've publicly stated, we have a 2050 net zero target to achieve, and also an interim target in 2035 to reduce our carbon intensity, so carbon emissions per revenue ton kilometers by 50% by 2035. So as you think about looking at that timeline and moving backwards, and recognizing that technologies and scaling takes 5 to 10 plus years, we really don't have the luxury of waiting and seeing what happens right over the next 10 years. So that was why United Airlines Ventures was created, to not only provide capital, but also provide the infrastructure and strategic support that a United Airlines has. To Ellie's point around sort of content, I'm a bit biased working for an airline and promoting travel. I think a couple of weeks ago, I visited CES in Las Vegas as a conference. First time to be in that conference, first time to have a live event of that scale. And it was a good reminder for all of us that, while we're in a Zoom world and we're meeting virtually, nothing really replaces the active, real-time, getting to know people and seeing new opportunities, visiting something like that and seeing what kind of technologies exist that we really hadn't even identified or thought of for the airline in our decarbonization efforts is real, and we couldn't have done virtually.
Thanks, Andrew. Excited to dig in on what you've been learning at your adventures at United so far, and truly what a gift it is when we can be in person with people. Who knew that we would find that to be a luxury at a certain point in our journey? Right. Cathy, I would love to turn it over to you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your current compelling content.
Okay, well, great. Thanks so much for that, Ellie. I think the most current compelling content is my daily start with Minute with Maxwell in the morning. I need that positive, uplifting message to kind of kick off my day and put me in the right frame of mind to do all the business that we will do throughout the day. So thanks for that. Yeah, and then would you like for me to make a few comments at this point?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization.
Yeah, I'm happy to do so. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Happy to join all of you today. Yeah, my name is Cathy MacBeth. I'm the Director of Strategic Development at Ecoengineers, and I've been with the firm since 2015. Ecoengineers was established in 2009 to serve the needs of biofuel producers, both domestically and internationally, to help them navigate the regulatory and technical construct of the clean energy economy. Our work is connecting this production to market, helping to optimize the production and monetize the investment. We work across all of the fuel types, from ethanol, biodiesel, renewable diesel, RNG, renewable electricity, and hydrogen. We are headquartered in Des Moines, Iowa, and we have staff from coast to coast. Our team is made up of scientists, life cycle analysts, engineers, regulatory experts, policy specialists, auditors, and CPAs. And our core services, our clients really are anyone these days that are working to decarbonize their business or our economy. And our core services are audit and verification and consulting services. On the audit and verification side of our business, we are US EPA auditors under the Federal Renewable Fuel Standard Program. And we are also an accredited verification body under California's Low Carbon Fuel Program and Oregon's Clean Fuel Program. We support international standards as well, like ISCC and RED2, and we're currently undergoing ISO certification, so we'll be able to participate in Canada's Clean Fuel Standard as it comes online in the coming weeks, months, and years. On the consulting side of our business, we are organized into 5 highly specialized teams that come alongside project owners and developers and help you from feasibility to commissioning on your project to get them into the energy credit markets. And I think in 2021, we touched about 300 clean energy projects. So there's a lot of activity going on out there right now. I understand that the topic is the clean energy economy, and I've heard it referred to already, the energy transition. And we have to talk about that as a part of clean energy. I wanted to give just a little bit of my perspective about the energy transition and share it with you. Some of this has been said, but I've got to go back to 2020, which is a watershed year where the energy transition really got traction when BP, Shell, Chevron, and others announced zero carbon goals by 2050. We saw Berkshire Hathaway acquire Dominion Pipe assets for $10 billion. Dominion and Smithfield Foods joint venture brought $650 million to market to develop RNG projects, and a whole host of other publicly traded companies that committed to zero carbon goals, and particularly when BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, required ESG reporting to demonstrate year-over-year carbon reduction to decarbonize your business and or the economy. The movement went on into 2021 and gained real momentum when we watched Nicor Gas and their RNG pilot project get green-lighted in Illinois, and Illinois state passed their Clean Energy Jobs Act. There were a whole host of other things that happened in 2021 in Minnesota and Nevada, and Washington passed a clean energy program. New York, New Mexico, and Minnesota also put clean fuels legislation forward that didn't make it, but we expect to see that come about in 2022. And here we are early in January, and already this year we see a big major announcement from ADM that they'll be building a 350-mile CO2 pipeline from its ethanol production facilities in Iowa down to geologic storage in Decatur, where they will sequester about 12 million tons of CO2 annually. So, what does all this mean to you? Here, I'm going to just steal a tagline from BP, actually. Illinois has a great opportunity to reimagine energy, grow your economy, and reap the environmental benefits of doing so. Let me share just a couple of projects that we're working on in Illinois right now that demonstrate some of the economic benefit that can be gained from developing these projects. The first one is a project we've been on for about 2 years, and it is currently in construction. It's in Will County. It's the Prairie View landfill where they're capturing landfill gas or methane. It's being clean conditioned, compressed, and then injected into the pipeline and taken out to the energy credit markets and monetized. That project is a $45 million construction project. The return to the county estimate on the energy credit returns is anywhere from $12 to $20 million annually. And the environmental benefit is a 60,000 ton annually reduction of CO2 emissions, which will be an environmental benefit experienced locally. Other work that we did in 2021 included being commissioned by Nicor Gas to do some economic modeling around potential renewable natural gas projects in Illinois under 4 different formats, one from wastewater, landfill gas, food waste, organic waste, and swine manure. I won't share them all, but I'll give you some the results from the food waste and the swine. The food waste project was going to generate a significant amount of biogas per day. Estimates are $64 million in construction cost, 456 construction jobs created, 68 permanent jobs as a result, $16 million in increased tax receipts over the life of the project, which would be at 20 years, and a total economic output of $697 million in the state. For the swine manure project, it would generate about 685 MMBTUs per day of biogas, $37 million of construction investment, 229 construction jobs, 46 permanent jobs, $11 million increased tax revenue over 20 years, and total economic output of $478 million. And as many environmental benefits, again, from developing these projects. Illinois is sitting with a $5 billion ethanol industry, $3 billion biodiesel industry, and has enough biogenic carbon assets to leverage these existing resources into clean energy in your state, utilizing the regulated credit markets or the voluntary carbon markets as well. So with that, I'll just leave it there, and I'll look forward to taking questions later. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Cathy, and for really rooting all of us today in that reminder that we are at the dawn of a new day when it comes to energy and the potential and opportunity that is before us. Our last panelist to introduce himself is Jason Feldman. Jason, would love to turn it over to you to hear a little bit about you and the work that you're doing and your compelling content recommendation.
Great. Well, thank you, Ellie. I think for content, like Cathy, I like a little bit little dose of positivity, and I guess probably Ted Lasso has been sort of my go-to these days. My kids will watch it with me, and I just, I guess I love that just relentless sort of positivity in these often challenging and confusing times. So that's sort of my go-to decompression content. But good to be here today. Jason Feldman, from one of the co-founders of Green Era. Green Era, we're developing an anaerobic digester in South Chicago that will recycle inedible food waste or organic waste to produce renewable energy in the form of renewable natural gas, and also nutrient-rich compost to expand local food production and support economic development. It's a really high-impact project that'll create a lot of jobs on the South Side, also be a real engine for new opportunities in the community and sort of the green economy. It's an overall campus that we're developing on 9 acres that will include not only the biodigester to process the organics. We'll also have an on-site urban farm, a community education center as well. So folks can really tangibly connect to what we're doing in a really meaningful way to really sort of understand of, hey, why should I recycle my banana peel? What does that mean, particularly to me, and really walk them through that process, particularly around recycling. There's often a lot of confusion to, what happens to it, where are my plastics going? So we really want to tangibly connect folks to that whole process of recycling those organics, how we create renewable energy, how we create compost, and then also let those folks, be able to sort of touch and see on the campus of how we're growing food with that, how it's directly benefiting the community, creating jobs, creating healthy food, and really exciting educational opportunities and touch points for folks, particularly on the south and west sides of Chicago, to connect with those new careers that we're building. So we're working with local high schools, educators, to really make those connections, and then also businesses that we're working with, like BP out there, who are looking to onboard new opportunities for folks in those communities. So just a really exciting project, really high impact project, and look forward to answering questions today. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. Excited to learn more about your work and the ways in which your team is making this new era that we're entering accessible for everyone, and moving our culture to embracing it rather than seeing it through a lens of fear. So exciting times all around. World Business Chicago, Nicor, and BP has done an incredible job of bringing together these experts today so that we can learn from their experiences. And so before we dive into Q&A, I've got a few specific questions that we've put together for our panelists today. And I'd love to begin with Andrew. We'd love to learn a little bit more about United's Sustainable Aviation Fuels Initiative. Can you tell us, for those of us who aren't familiar, a bit about what is SAF and how is it changing the airline industry's outlook on the industry as a whole and the economic impact?
Great, thanks, Ellie. So to give you some context, 98% of our greenhouse emissions as an airline originate from our consumption of jet fuel, right? So flying passengers from point A to point B. And today that's done with traditional fossil-based jet fuel. So when you think about our efforts to decarbonize, that is the single most impactful way we can decarbonize, by transitioning from a fossil-based fuel to what we call sustainable aviation fuel. So what is SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, right? It's a chemically identical composition to jet fuel. It works the same way. It's the same type of burn, but it originates from sustainable processes and initiatives, right? So we are evaluating a number of feedstocks and chemical pathways to create building blocks of these hydrocarbons so that we end up with a jet fuel that doesn't originate from under the ground fossil fuels. And what United Airlines Ventures is trying to do is accelerate the technology, the R&D, and the evolution of SAF development. In terms of scale, if you think about the 4 billion gallons of fuel that United burned in 2019, for us to meet our decarbonization initiatives, we need to transition 1.9 billion gallons of that consumption to sustainable aviation fuel. The market supply of that today is less than 5 million gallons, right? 5 to 10 million gallons. So that's the bridge that we need to build. And therefore, our investments are focused on all sorts of feedstocks and pathways. Like I said, it could be woody biomass, it could be algae, it could be other sustainable-based feedstocks. We're also looking at things like power to liquids, where you're taking CO2 and hydrogen from water sources, electrolyzing water to produce hydrogen with renewable electricity to, again, build hydrocarbons to create sustainable aviation fuel.
That's excellent, Andrew. And I'm curious, I know that we didn't all sign NDAs today, so there may be a limit to what you can share when I ask this question. But based on all of the promising innovations that you've seen to date and that your team is working with, is there anything that you find particularly promising that people should have on their radars as we think about SAFs?
Yeah, I think we try to look at both the near-term and long-term timeline. I think in the near term, when we're looking at 2 to 5 years, we need to make some steps, some headways to increasing supply. And there's existing technologies, and you're looking at a lot of the independent refiners today are transitioning towards renewable diesel, and similarly, they can transition to sustainable aviation fuel using existing technologies today. And so we are working with some of those players like a BP, right? Some of these integrated producers who have the assets today. The challenge is around economics. So similar to solar and wind, it took them decades to sort of get the scale and get the unit costs down. That's the challenge we face today with existing technologies, is to make sure that they are economic. And there's a component of government and regulatory support that we'll need around that. Longer term, it will have to be some of these technologies that aren't yet quite proven. Still need capital and R&D development, still need scaling up and infrastructure to support. Those are the technologies, as I mentioned, the power to liquids. That is not something that's going to happen in the next 2 to 5 years. That is probably a 10+ year time frame. But CO2 is abundant, CO2 is a problem. So if you could use that as a feedstock, right, long-term, multi-decade outlook, that's feasible. But it comes back again to economics, technology, and scalability. So power to liquids, as an example, is a long-term view. We're looking at alcohol to jet technologies that also exist, and there's a lot of ethanol producers. But again, it comes back down to economics as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. I'd love to turn it over to Cathy now for a question about your work and what Ecoengineers team of experts are doing today in the renewable natural gas space. We know that your team of experts guide carbon markets from policy to practice and clean fuel projects from concept to commissioning. So you really are in this end-to-end world with the partners who you work with. We'd love to know a little bit more about the work that you're doing with renewable natural gas with Nicor and the environmental and economic impact that you're seeing.
Okay, no, thanks for the question. I covered some of that in my opening remarks, but again, really just coming alongside Nicor and doing the economic modeling up front to demonstrate the economic impact that developing the RNG assets or the biogenic carbon assets that you have in Illinois can make a significant return. The one example that I use for Will County Prairie View landfill will return somewhere on the energy credit markets once the production's monetized, somewhere from $12 to $20 million annually to the county, that they'll be able to continue to maintain their solid waste operations and or to evolve those solid waste operations into maybe more biogas and managing waste in a brand new way, along with any other of the economic needs that the county may have to apply those funds towards. Otherwise, the work that we're doing with Nicor gas is the modeling that we've done has been pretty hypothetical at this point. Those projects aren't in the ground or shovel ready quite yet, but they've been identified. And thanks to the RNG pilot program that was approved in Illinois for Nicor, those projects will become reality. And the economic output is certainly, it is there. And I think that, in the numbers that I shared around that with, which includes, a number of new job creation temporary during construction, permanent jobs at each location, and increased tax revenues and economic output in the hundreds of millions of dollars over a 20-year lifespan. So and other thing, otherwise in developing RNG or biogas into RNG. RNG is also now kind of moving into a second generation phase where it is becoming actually a feedstock for renewable electricity to support the EV market that will be developing. It's also being used as a feedstock for renewable hydrogen as well. So the applications, I think this is one of the exciting things that we're seeing around renewable natural gas. Not only are we taking the methane, converting it to biogas and biogas to renewable natural gas to get it into CNG and LNG for transportation use, but it can also start to support the development of electric vehicle markets and hydrogen markets as well, not only into transportation, but in thermal applications.
Thank you for sharing that, Cathy. And I know that you shared some really robust data with us in your introduction, but it's exciting to hear about the ripple effect that this pilot has and all the promise and potential. I'm curious, Jason, I'd love to turn it over to you to talk a little bit more about the work that's happening with Green Era Sustainability. Talk to us a bit about anaerobic digestion, biogas, and RNG. There are some of us who may have more familiarity with these concepts than others. Tell us how do these forms of biofuels meet communities' growing energy needs? I know that community is something that you really centered in on in your introduction. So would love to hear more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This has really been the spotlight and sort of the foundation of the Green Era project. And, we were very thoughtful in placing the project and working with the community from, inception of really reaching out to community leaders and really understanding the needs of the community, the job opportunities that folks are looking for, and really trying to identify and work with partners to really not only elevate the project, but also the greater community. And part of that was working with community development entities, working with local schools and educators, even in the design of the campus, and finding things that were value adds to the community. So it was a really wonderful process that we participated in, and as such have great community folks involved in it. There's community ownership in the project, so the success of the project feeds right back into the community and really paying it forward to new opportunities and new investments in the community. But we'll be on the campus, converting, really providing a resource where we're increasing recycling in the city, diverting organics from landfills, utilizing that food waste, that inedible food waste, to create renewable natural gas, which will be injected in the grid, working with People's Gas and BP, which is a really great and exciting opportunity to supply, a renewable supply of gas. It'll enhance system flexibility by providing that locally produced gas. It's a clean carbon negative fuel that we'll be producing. And I think what's really exciting is that, it really allows customers to really, make an impact in the community. This is something that, is locally produced with local, food waste that was, once a waste product that's now a resource that's staying in the community. So I think that's really exciting that, it really empowers folks to be part of the solution. I know that, myself included, it often seems out of reach in making a difference out there, but this is truly something that, will make a difference in the community. It increases organics recycling, increases the production of renewable energy, decreases carbon. And this is all without new infrastructure. I think this is really important to, show that, we're utilizing existing pipelines out there. This isn't a huge investment in building new pipelines. Developing something like this close to, existing infrastructure really leverages that. And we're also creating nutrient-rich compost to expand local food production. We work closely with our related nonprofit called Urban Growers Collective that has 8 urban farms throughout the city of Chicago. Most of these farms are on old industrial sites or parking lots, and they're all in areas where we need to bring in large volumes of compost. And that's also often a bottleneck for our expansion, just the huge volumes that we need for our own internal operations at the nonprofit, as well as the folks that we're training, whether it's a school, a church group, folks in the community who want to, also grow food. The city of Chicago has something like 9,000 vacant lots. If we can begin to repurpose those to grow food, engage the neighborhoods, they truly become community assets. But in order to do so, we need compost. And that's the other critical piece of the digesters. We get these two wonderful byproducts. One is renewable energy, but also this wonderful nutrient-rich material that we can use to grow more food, put these sites back to good use, create new jobs and opportunity and more sustainable communities overall. And then you tether that with the educational component, the STEM component that we're working on and building on. There's just so many exciting opportunities to sort of tether all these pieces together and also work with, not only community organizations on the ground, but larger organizations like the BPs of the world to really amplify that opportunity and that career pathway. And I think, what's also exciting is this, helps communities, businesses, different organizations really pivot from a very linear economy that we've had for so long to a much more circular economy. It gives them tangible ways, recycle that organic, use more renewable energy, and create those jobs and job pathways that makes a project like this, I think, high impact, exciting, but also replicatable. This is something that we can do across the U.S. There's so much organic waste that we send to landfills. It's in most places the number one thing going to landfills. So taking this waste product and turning it into a resource, I think, is just a really exciting opportunity.
Jason, I loved all the ways that you laid out the community impact and how the community benefits from the work that you're doing. And I'm curious, for all of us who are thinking about how we meaningfully engage community in this shift, how do you think about the learnings that you've amassed from the work you've done to date? What advice would you impart on people who are thinking about how we bring community into the renewable energy conversation?
Sure. I think, for us, it was starting very early, just in the concept phase of bringing in community leaders, bringing in the city, bringing in the state, really getting that feedback as we started out, connecting with folks and listening, was so important to that journey. And then I think as we move forward, what's exciting is the opportunity of this educational center that we're going to be developing on the site with the support of the Pritzker-Traubert Foundation. We won something called the Chicago Prize with the Auburn Gresham Always Growing team in 2020 that really provided the seed resources for this educational center that will really be a touch point on the south side of Chicago and a real hub for this new growth sector in Chicago. So I think providing that touch point where folks can come and learn and get educated with these new opportunities that are being created here in Chicago, here on the south side, and really begin to understand those pathways. It's really about outreach. And I think outreach, listening, and really, showing those connections, whether you're interested in renewable energy, urban farming, and composting. There's so many different aspects to it, as well as new entrepreneurial opportunities around organics collection, and more sustainable infrastructure like rain gardens and urban farming. So there's just all these opportunities. And I think it's sort of laying that out and then beginning to show some of those stepping stones folks can take to begin to create careers in that path.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. It's a great reminder for all of us to be proactive in the way we think about our outreach and who we're including in the conversation, even in our earliest days. I'd love to open up to the entire group a few questions that I suspect each of you have a perspective on. Obviously, for those of us who are firmly rooted in the Midwest, we are aware that many people look to the West Coast when it comes to innovation in clean energy. But we in Chicago like to believe we've got a lot to offer to the rest of the world. And so I'm curious for all of you, when you think about the ways in which Chicago is positioned and the Chicago region is positioned to help lead the change, what are some of the ways that you're seeing companies be leaders in these initiatives and the types of assets that we should be celebrating and amplifying throughout not only the country, but globally as we all look at the space?
Happy to jump in and start us off. Look, I think
Right.
Chicago being headquarters for United, right? And it's a central component. It's one of our 7 key hubs. So from a geographic perspective, from a corporate perspective, absolutely critical to who we are in operations. And then as you look at our network, right, it's smack dab in the middle of our network, right? So as we think about moving people and products and sort of the business around the country. And then as we come out of the pandemic and connect people globally, internationally, look, for us in looking at sustainable aviation fuel and carbon capture technologies, Chicago and our region absolutely needs to be a component of that. At the end of the day, we're agnostic. We'll take it where we can, but at the same time, we recognize, with our particular location, again, with our corporate headquarters and the location of our hub here, relative to our other component hubs, it is important for us to make sure we have the support, we have the technology, we have the production of the fuel to deliver to O'Hare.
Yeah, great. I'll chime in on that as well, Ellie. Really, I think on the West Coast, what I see is a lot of innovative policy development that supports the production of renewable, of low carbon fuels or renewable fuels. But the reality is all the feedstock remains here in the Midwest. Most of the production's done here in the Midwest. Ethanol, biodiesel, renewable diesel. I mean, they're all coming from, our corn and our soybeans that we grow here, and from our animal production and animal waste, quite frankly, to get to that low carbon renewable natural gas from swine or dairy manure. So all of those feedstock assets really originate here. There's a lot of opportunity to provide a new revenue stream into our agricultural economy in rural parts of the Midwest. And we're doing so. There's quite a bit of development being done around new feedstocks and energy crops that are being looked at here in the Midwest and being blended with other feedstocks to see if we can't optimize production. We're also, optimizing the carbon intensity and bringing the carbon intensity of, let's say, ethanol down by using carbon capture sequestration, so we can get maybe to a lower carbon intensity ethanol product to feed into that SAF as a feedstock and improve that economic scenario there, so that these projects can come to market more quickly. And then otherwise, and then we see, also the politics and policy developing in Illinois. I think you all passed the Clean Jobs Act in 2021, which is a significant move to really incentivize the development of renewable fuels in Illinois. So there's a lot of things to be celebrated in Illinois and around the Midwest, because we're the drivers of the clean energy economy, really. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I agree with Cathy. I think that feedstock is a key component here in Illinois, and the policy is absolutely moving in the right direction, which is really exciting to see. And I think, Illinois and Chicago just has a really rich history in food and ag. And I think that leadership is continuing in that piece, and that rich history, that infrastructure, the companies that are sort of centralized here in those businesses provide, for our project, a lot of organic waste, a lot of, packaged material that we can begin to divert from landfills. So I think it really shows an exciting opportunity, particularly here, how we're now pivoting from sending those materials to landfills to higher and better use to reduce the carbon impact of that and the operations of these companies. And I think just it's a real beacon of progress. So I think lots of great things coming together here to make it possible to really move forward in that direction.
Thank you all for your perspective here. I think we could just take this little segment and make it a business development reel for anyone in renewable energy. There's so much in the Chicago region and the Midwest more broadly that makes it a logical home for this work. So excited for us to continue to amplify this. And to that end, when we think about the role that Chicago's civic and business leaders play in supporting these efforts and the future for biofuels, if you could impart on those of us who might be holding a role in the civic universe or in leadership roles in the business community, what roles should we be playing to better support these efforts? What does this future look like? And how can we be thinking about the ways in which, for example, we could be challenging government procurement processes and major project owners to adapt their models, their procurement models, to drive in this direction?
Sure, I can start there. I know from our perspective, it's usually speak up. I think that it often feels sort of out of our grasp to make a difference, but I think, however small, speaking up at, your schools, in your communities, at your businesses to encourage, more recycling, to drive that, to encourage policymakers, elected officials to say, hey, this is important to us. We want to recycle more. We want to see the ability to, purchase more renewable energy locally. Folks listen, leaders listen. And I think if you take the time to speak up, to raise your hand and say, I want to see this happening, even at my school level, that has a very sort of sticky opportunity to sort of bring more people in to begin to move the needle on that, which then, pushes policy forward, pushes more green infrastructure dollars forward to allow, that infrastructure to be created so that, more momentum can happen in this direction. But I think, start small. We were very much a grassroots organization, and it was just sort of speaking up, reaching out, and sort of putting those pieces together that allowed us to move forward. And I think, I just encourage folks, just to raise your hand, get out there and, talk to your elected officials, talk to your school board, talk to, your local communities that, you want to see change happen. And, the ball is rolling. So we welcome your support.
I appreciate that, Jason. And that headline for me really around start small and use your voice are two things that I think we all are equipped to do in our everyday. So it's a helpful reminder for the ways in which we can take action. There's a question, though. There might be skeptics, right, who hear about renewable energy and wonder where are the gaps or potential problems that might emerge. And I'm curious to know, when you think about backing up renewable energy microgrids, if someone says, well, how do we back it up? Batteries are too expensive. What are the alternatives that we can propose when we talk about backing up the microgrids?
Well, backing up the microgrids, it just reminds me of electric production, actually. I mean, and I don't know, we're talking more gaseous and liquid fuels from my perspective, but those are certainly from sustainable resources. And, you can always, you can always have a second generation or generation backup, whether it's from your traditional generation backup that is also supported by renewable fuels. But I'm not sure that I'm addressing your question, or maybe I even understand it correctly. Ellie, if you want to put me on track here, that'd be great.
Well, as much as I'd love to put you on track here, Cathy, we are almost at the top of our time before we turn it back over to our next speaker. So in our last 90 seconds here, I'd actually love to do a quick lightning round. And for the person who submitted that question, hopefully we can do some type of follow-up to get better answers or more in-depth answers on the microgrid backup question. But in our last 90 seconds, lightning round, 30 seconds from each of you, what is the best way for those of us who have the privilege of joining you this afternoon to stay engaged in the progress of the work that you're doing, whether that's a Twitter handle where we can follow you, a white paper that you have to share, but what's the best way that we can stay engaged and involved in your progress? Cathy, I'll turn it over to you first.
Great, thanks, Ellie. Well, please visit us at www.ecoengineers.us. We have a tremendous amount of resources on our website. We have a lot of thought leadership, white papers that are published there, and we have Eco Insights, which is a video library really of all of the educational videos or webinars that we have done over the years that are there. So if you want to learn about the energy credit markets or the California's LCFS market, or how to bring an RNG project to market, all of that knowledge is there, and you can find it at Ecoengineers. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Cathy. Andrew, what about you? What's the best way for us to stay engaged?
Yeah, I think we absolutely want to be an active participant in helping to progress and accelerate sort of sustainable aviation fuel and carbon capture technologies. We do have a United Airlines Ventures website that'll give you more detail around our full mandate. It also spans aerospace and other technologies as well. but certainly reach out to us. We're always looking for investment opportunities. And like I said previously, we offer not only financial capital, but also strategic capital, right? I like to view United Airlines as a global conglomerate. And when you think about moving people from point A to point B, it's not just the airplane. There's the pilots, the mechanics, the catering, marketing, loyalty program, technology, procurement, right? So all these different businesses within our holding company. And to the extent we can offer that as supporting infrastructure and knowledge and connectivity to some of these startup businesses, early stage businesses, that's what we're here for.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. And selfishly, as a United frequent flyer, I appreciate all the ways United is driving innovation and sustainability forward. And lastly, Jason, if you want to give us a quick rundown about how we can stay engaged with your work, would love to know how we can stay engaged.
Absolutely. You can find us at greenerachicago.com. We also have a Twitter link there, Facebook link on tracking our progress. And please do reach out. We'd love to stay in touch. We'd love to stay engaged. Folks who are interested in partnering on recycling their organic waste, happy to connect with you, and many other, exciting opportunities to collaborate on this high impact project. So please reach out, and we look forward to staying in touch. And thanks for having me here today.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. It's a great reminder that we are all in this together, and we all have a role to play in bringing about a more sustainable future, not just for Chicago, but for the world. And so much of that future is really anchored in our city and in our region. I'd love to turn it over now to our last speaker. Marie Laporte is going to bring our program to a close today. She is Nicor Gas's Director of Customer Solutions, and we're all excited to hear what she has to share with us. Marie, I'll turn it over to you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much for that engaging discussion about the role of business in bringing forth innovation and technology to enable the energy transformation and our path to net zero carbon emissions. My gosh, that was such a great panel discussion. Many thanks to our panelists, Cathy from Ecoengineers, Jason from Green Era, Andrew from United Ventures, and thank you, Ellie, for leading such a dynamic discussion. I think the comment that I love the most that you said was, we're at the dawn of a new day. And I can tell you, in all of my years in this industry, that's a great way to summarize it. We are at the dawn of a new day. As Ellie said, my name is Marie Laporte. I'm the Director of Customer Solutions for Nicor Gas. Nicor is Illinois' largest natural gas distributor, delivering natural gas safely and reliably to over 2.2 million customers in more than 650 communities throughout Northern Illinois. I think it's clear that the Chicago region is creating an ecosystem of partners who are working together to position us to be leaders in clean energy. Nicor Gas is proud to play a critical role of the Chicago region's clean energy future. We believe that net zero energy future is possible. That's why we're fueling forward with a bold but doable goal for our operations to be net zero methane emissions by 2030. There's a lot that we're already working on to support the region's path to decarbonization while supporting our economy with affordable and resilient energy. Since 2010, our customers have reduced emissions by nearly 1 million metric tons through our energy efficiency program. We've also been a leader in the industry in making proactive system improvements to minimize methane and other greenhouse gas emissions. Through our investments in pipeline and infrastructure modernization, with the support of our regulators, we've reduced our annual operational greenhouse gas emissions by more than 54% over a 10-year period, from 2009 through 2019. We are also helping to drive innovation with investments in renewable natural gas and hydrogen research. We're implementing innovative ways to be a catalyst to grow the renewable natural gas market in Illinois and to stimulate the circular economy. Through our parent company, Southern Company, we are also leading the change in hydrogen research with partnerships both regionally and nationally. And finally, we're focused on being equitable to ensure that clean, safe, reliable, and affordable energy is accessible to all of our communities that we serve. Our region's total energy delivery works as a system, and our customers are counting on all of us to collaborate, coordinate, and innovate to deliver clean, affordable, and resilient energy. As we emerge from this pandemic and we work toward racial equity, our region needs inclusive policies that achieve greenhouse gas reductions effectively while supporting our region's diverse economy and thriving communities. I want to thank World Business Chicago and BP for elevating this conversation so we can build a clean and strong economy in the region. I'm going to turn it over to Nicole now, who will close us out.
Thank you so much, Marie, our panelists, our fantastic moderator, Ellie, and of course to our audience for joining us today. We hope to see you back for our third and fourth Clean Energy Series sessions, which will cover clean tech entrepreneurship and accelerating Chicago's hydrogen economy. So be on the lookout for future invitations. On behalf of BP, Nicor, and World Business Chicago, thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.